Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheila, and tonight our story is called When God Sent the Delays. Have you ever wanted to go somewhere to visit and you can't wait to get there? And things like a broken road or an accident or other things delays you, so you have to wait. And it's easy to complain, isn't it, if you can't get there as fast as you want to. Over the years, I've learned that sometimes our God uses delays to protect us. There's story after story of people that had they not been delayed, they might have been in a terrible accident. Sometimes God uses delays. So listen to our story. This story comes from the Philippines, and it just happened. Well, on the campus of the school there, it was a Christian school, Pastor Joseph, he decided that the school should have a baptistry. Do you know what a baptistry is? Well, most baptistries are in churches, and when people want to give their hearts to Jesus, they want to show everyone that God's washing their sins away, and they want to live for Jesus. Well, the baptistry is a big, huge, like a small swimming pool, much bigger than a bathtub, and they use that to baptize people, and the minister prays, and when the people have accepted Jesus and they've learned how to be a Christian, they can be baptized. And baptism, the minister will dip the person down in the water and immediately pull them back up. And it signifies that all their sins are washed away. Well, at this school, the pastor frequently had students that wanted to be baptized, or other people from the community there that had learned all about Jesus and wanted to be baptized. But the pastor was always having to take them to places like the Cold River and different places to baptize them because they had no baptistry. It takes money to build things. So these missionaries had contacted their friends from all over the world and told them, we would like to have a baptistry built so we could do our baptisms right here. Well, Pastor Joseph, he waited to see the people and the kids there on the campus, prayed that God would touch the people's hearts and would send money for them to build the baptistry. It didn't take too many months for enough money to have come in for them to buy all the materials for the baptistry. Well, the students were excited, and of course Pastor Joseph was excited. When it was time, the pastor, he and the man they'd hired, whose name was Kuya, he was a carpenter, and he had worked for them before, so they knew he did a good job. And he and the pastor went to town and they ordered all the supplies. Well, there was kind of a problem because their school was a long ways away from town. Well, the truck that delivered for the materials place, the lumber yard in town, didn't come as far as their school. So they made arrangements that when the man would come, he would let them know he was coming, and he would drop their things off at his last drop-off point. And then they would either have to walk, or if it was available, they might use the little pickup that belonged to the school. Well, that was kind of an inconvenience, but the students were so excited about having a baptistry that there was a lot of them that offered to go take that long walk down to where the stuff was to be dropped off. And if it were smaller things, they would haul it back. If it was big things, then of course they would have to use the truck. But the students liked to get to go and pick up the smaller boxes. And yes, it was a chore to walk all that way and walk all the way back with a load. But they were excited. They were going to have their own baptistry. Well, it came time for all those supplies to be delivered. The pastor had talked to the carpenter they'd hired, Kuya, and he was Kuya Martin. And the pastor said, Kuya, I think it would get done much faster if you had an assistant. Is there someone close here that you could hire? We would pay him too. So Kuya said, I'll find somebody. Well, when the first amount of supplies were supposed to come, Kuya came, and he had a friend with him. And his name was also Kuya. Of course, he had a different last name, Egon. Well, the two Kuyas settled in one of the rooms at the school. It had been agreed that they should be able to finish the project in 1 week. That wasn't long, a week. Well, the first Kuya, Dr. Kuya Martin, he was not a Christian. And the pastor knew that, but they also knew that he was a very good carpenter, and they wanted the job done right. So they thought, it's all right. Maybe being on campus, he'll learn a little bit about Jesus. Well, Kuya, he had a couple bad habits. And those habits were, he liked to drink alcohol. It had been agreed that he wouldn't drink there on the campus. And it was only a week. So Kuya agreed that he could go for a week without alcohol. So when they got there, the two Kuyas, the pastor noticed that the second young man had tattoos all over him. And he also had what you call piercings. He had things hanging from his ears and different parts of his body. And the pastor thought, oh my. Well, the day after they had gotten there, The pastor had given them a nice place to stay, and he was providing food for them because he wanted this to be a good experience, and he didn't want them to have to run to town and waste their time. So every day the pastor would bring them over food. Well, that first day, when the project was supposed to get started, it started to rain. Here, we may get a nice, peaceful rain. Once in a while, we'll have a bad storm when the rain just comes down in sheets. But there, when it rains, it's a major thing. It just dumps water. That first day that they were supposed to start on the project, it rained so badly that no materials could be delivered. Well, the first kuya, he said, "Is there some other project that we can do for you since we're here?" And the pastor said, "That's very kind of you. Yes, we'll pay you for your time." And so he gave them a carpenter project that really needed to be done. Well, by the next day, the rain had stopped. But when there's a bad rainstorm, there can be mud everywhere. And when there's terrible mud, sometimes a big truck that hauls things can't go through all that mud. Well, the pastor found some little projects for them to do, and he told them, "It's all right, you guys can take a rest." And he had put a small radio in their room where they were staying. Well, after being there for a couple days, the two carpenters, they slowly started to change what they said because they didn't want the students to hear them use bad language. And certainly at this Christian school, they weren't going to drink any alcohol. And they knew that the kind of music they listened to might be too loud, and the words might not be good for the students. So they just turned the radio on to the world radio station. And that's a Christian station. And the music was nice, and they listened to it, and they enjoyed it. Well, the next day, the supplies did come, and they were able to go out and get them. The students helped bring them, so they had stuff to start with. And the next day, some of the wood came. Well, the following day, it rained again. Not just a little bitty rain, but sheets of rain. Well, the men had the supplies that had come in yesterday, so they were able to start working with them, but it wasn't enough to keep them busy the whole day. Well, in the evening, the men were just resting, and they were listening to that radio station. Well, that was the first night of a set of meetings that was called My Journey with God. And every night there was like a short sermon. And then it was kind of like a Bible study. And they would have like a quiz and things. Well, the men thought, we don't have anything else to do. It looks like it would be a good program. But we're only going to be here a week. But look at it. They'd already been there 3 days, and they'd hardly even started. So they listened to that meeting that night, and Pastor Joseph came to make sure they had plenty of food. And he heard them listening, and he said, oh, the students are all listening every evening and answering all the questions. We're glad that you get to listen too. Well, there was one delay after another. You know, the pastor had no idea why there were so many delays, but every day that they were there longer, those men listened to what the preacher preached about God and how God loved them and the plan of salvation, how he died for them, things that they had never heard before. It was wonderful. And every night, they actually couldn't wait to hear the next ministry meeting. Well, it seemed really strange. But every couple days, there were more delays. And the supplies wouldn't come. There was just one thing after the other. Well, those meetings were going to last for 36 days. Do you know how many times there had been delays? Enough. So it took well over a month for that baptistry to get built. When it was done, it was beautiful. And the students were so excited. Now they had their very own baptistry. And do you know what the other thing was that they were excited about? Those two men, the two Kuyas, they had gone to Pastor Joseph and they said, oh, Pastor, can the two of us be the very first people to give their hearts to God and be baptized and wash away our sins so we can live a better life? Please, may we be the very first people to be baptized. Well, the pastor was really excited. There wasn't anybody right then that was going to be baptized, but that weekend they had a baptism in that brand new baptistry. And the two Kuyas gave their hearts to Jesus. And you know what, boys and girls? I think that all those delays were planned by God so those two men would have the opportunity to learn about Jesus. You know, sometimes delays are planned by God. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.